Morning, Eagles. For this episode, I'll be speaking more to teachers and parents. This pandemic has been extremely difficult for all of us, and it's hard to not let this situation get to you. As parents and teachers, we're used to taking care of others, especially our kids. Your day-to-day struggles draw out so much adrenaline, but you must stop and care for yourself so you can keep going. Taking care of yourself is hard. We're often not even aware that we're overwhelmed. You may need to talk about your feelings if you aren't coping well. If you have family and friends you can turn to, you're lucky. But if you don't, we're here. Don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us. Irving is blessed to have 3 full-time social workers, and their job is to be there to help everyone. Our social workers help students figure out their problems. They help students talk about their feelings. They help make students a plan to succeed with their teachers, friends, and families. They teach students coping skills to deal with their emotions. They help teachers identify and find ways to deal with students who are troubled. They are good listeners. Finally, they help parents with parenting and other life struggles. I like to call them our problem solvers, and I look to them as professionals who will help our students early in life. So Irving, listen to these thoughtful, caring professionals that help our students create a smoother runway on their way to life. And they will offer you tips and reflections on how to survive and even thrive, yes, thrive, during this difficult adjustment. I hope you all enjoy it.
I'm Laura Duel. I'm the preschool social worker at Irving, Pershing, and Hiawatha at the Berwyn South District. So at Irving, I work with Miss Julie and Miss Anna. So I go into the classroom and provide social work minutes to the kids in the classroom, and then also just general support to all the kids in those 2 preschool classes. And pretty much the majority of my social work career has been working with families with young children. So that's my zone. And I really enjoy working with families too, providing that support to parents as well.
Hi, I'm George Krieger, and I'm a clinical social worker. I have been a clinical social worker for about 25 years. Currently at Irving, I work with 2nd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, and I share my responsibilities with Ann Cummins, who's another fantastic social worker. She has the other grades. She has kindergarten, 1st and 3rd. Most of my responsibilities are to help students overcome any kind of obstacles in the way of their education. You know, my day in a nutshell is working with students both in gen ed and in special ed to help them overcome any obstacles that are preventing them from being the best students they can be.
I'm Annie Cummins. I am one of the social workers at Irving. I work with grades kindergarten, 1st, and 3rd. I joined Irving in November. I've been at a lot of different elementary schools. I've worked with middle school students, all just trying to work with students, families, and teachers to help students overcome social or emotional obstacles to learning.
With preschool age kids, with younger kids, it's a little harder to tell sometimes what they're feeling about what's going on right now. They're not as able to express it verbally, and they might not even be aware of what's happening for themselves, because everyone, but especially young kids, really feel their emotions in their bodies. And so, like, you know that when you're nervous, you feel butterflies in your stomach, but a little kid just feels something going on in their stomach. They don't know what that means. So they need a lot of support from adults to sort of pull out like what's going on, what they're feeling, and why that's happening right now. So it's really common right now to see kids going through regression, like maybe if they had successfully potty trained, that's not happening anymore, or more tantrums, refusing to do things that they know how to do for themselves, wanting parents to do more things for them. And all of that is really, really frustrating for parents, but it's also really normal and is in some ways a really good sign. It shows that they trust that you can keep them safe and help them with all these big feelings that they're having right now.
So overall signs of stress would be changes in changes in mood and behavior that's different from somebody's typical mood or typical behavior. So somebody being more irritable, less patient, kids being more clingy, weepy, maybe whining more. If you're feeling more run down, overwhelmed, trouble focusing, feel like your mind is kind of always going, can't shut that worry brain off. And then changes in sleep, so wanting to sleep more, wanting to sleep less, or sleeping less but wanting to sleep more. Changes in appetite and eating, those are all kind of the physical signs.
I think signs of stress are going to be pretty obvious. I have young children. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I think the most obvious sign of stress is, increased just being emotional. My son has a much more difficult time going to bed now than he did before this, because the structure of his life has completely changed. So he's more emotional.
Sometimes, especially with younger kids, we naturally want to protect them from what's going on. And it's hard to know how much they would understand, but it can actually be helpful to give some information, because if we keep it a secret, then they're going to build it up to something else. Like if we never tell kids why we're not going to school, young kids are so egocentric that they'll just maybe decide, like, I must have done something bad and that's why I'm not allowed to go back to school, or just some kind of story that they create in their mind. So if we give them a little bit of age appropriate information, that can actually be more helpful. And sometimes as parents, our anxiety about it is kind of getting in the way. Like I'll share a personal story. My daughter was talking to me about swimming lessons, and she's like, oh, when I do swimming lessons, blah, blah, blah. And I had to say, I'm not sure if we're going to do swimming lessons this summer. I don't know if the germs are going to be gone by then. And I was really worried. I wasn't sure if I should just maybe change the subject or talk about something else. And I decided to just go for it and said that. And then she was just like, okay, we'll just call the swimming place and ask them if they're going to be open or closed. Like she was not throwing herself on the floor crying about not having swimming lessons. She just moved on. And so I think if I had avoided it, that it would have come up later, and then maybe it would have been a whole thing, because she'd be like, you didn't tell me when we talked about this before. Which, like, to be clear, I'm failing half of the time in the ways that I'm dealing with this at home too. Like, so I want to sort of validate that for parents, that like we're all figuring this out and we don't have the right answers all the time. And like, this is completely unprecedented for all of us. So we're all sort of just trying to figure out how to manage. A couple key things. One is to get outside every day, as long as it's not raining, because we all need vitamin D and we need fresh air. And if you can combine that with getting a little bit of exercise, like just going for a family walk or something like that, that really helps everyone just be in a better mood. And I think for some people, it feels better to limit exposure to what's going on. So not obsessively checking the news or checking what's happening. Some people feel better to have more information. So again, that's like a very personal, like what helps you. But I think for kids, having just an answer to a question if they're asking something, and then you don't really need to keep giving them too much information. And then making sure to connect with other people. This is such an isolating time. And I think we're all feeling pretty like zoomed out. Like we have spent way too much time on tablets and computers and devices. But if there's a way to still find opportunities to connect with family members and friends, so that you don't feel so alone in the feelings that we're all having right now.
When you have a student or child that's more emotional, you need to kind of take a step back and offer them a little more support. So take a deep breath. Think about what you're doing before you do it. Calm yourself down. And it's a challenge to teach an elementary school kid to self-care in that way. But I think that, when you see a kid that's just not being themselves, I think all parents know that about their kid. They're like, you know what? He's just not right. actually, it is important for you to take care of yourself so that you're not so stressed. And I think I think that that's something that I try to communicate to teachers and parents alike, is that if a student is not in a place of emotional stability, they're not going to perform academically. They're not going to do their best at home. That you have to address that and provide them the support that they're crying out for, because that's really what that change in behavior is signaling. It's signaling, hey, you know what? I can't regulate myself. The situation is beyond my ability. I need someone to step in and help me out. So I urge parents to just kind of be aware of that, that this is what they're doing. They're crying out for that assistance. And it's hard. It's so hard with the way that the parent scheduling is now. I know a lot of parents have to work more because of the virus. My wife is a great example. My wife's a registered nurse. So she's working, and she works 12-hour shifts. So she's working more time than I can ever remember. So when she gets home at 8 or 8:30 at night, my kids just want to see her. That's all they want. So the difficulty getting them to sleep is not really their fault. It's because their schedule is so different, and the people that they see, the demands are so much more than they ever have been before.
I think the first thing that I know I'm always reminding myself is to recognize that change is hard, and we're asking everybody to change at once and to make really quick, rapid, and many changes. So just this is an extreme time of stress, and just reminding myself that people in my family are experiencing this too. So there might be one day where you feel like we're getting the hang of this, it's okay, and then the next day it's harder again, and that is normal. I think it's important to talk to your family, your coworkers, your teachers, share those feelings with those people, so that they can understand where you're coming from. You feel that connectivity with those people, and then you can also problem solve around whatever is an issue. Also, just trying to see different situations from mom and dad's point of view, from your daughter or sons, from your teacher's point of view. I think that's really important and leads to that empathy and understanding of just everybody's experience. Paying attention to how you're taking care of yourself is really important. So things like paying attention to how much you're listening to the news or electronic exposure too. So I know I get my news, I read it more so than have the TV on, because I can control that a little bit more. And if it's becoming a little too overwhelming, I can turn my phone off and then do something else, come back to it. Say other things that are helpful, looking for kindnesses that are going on around you, finding laughter, whether it's telling favorite stories, family stories with each other, telling jokes, watching funny animal YouTubes, whatever. Doing kind things for others is very important, for you to feel good, but then, of course, to help other people too. The other thing that I know I'm doing a lot with my daughter is just creating things. So, or even trying something new, making things, sidewalk chalk or a craft or something, and sharing that time together.
And if people need to get a hold of me, you can reach me at my email, lduel@bsd100.org. or call or text my Google Voice number during school hours, and that's 708-406-9067. And I've been joining the teachers' weekly virtual circle times or story times. So that's another way that I can connect with your child each week.
For me, the best way to contact me initially is through email. And my email is both on the website, it's on my own personal page. The website is a great way to get information about me and some resources about what social work is, and there's some activities on there. But really, the best way to get a hold of me is just to email me. I check my email all the time, even in the evenings and on weekends.
I'm happy to help any students, parents that are wanting help with anything from figuring out an at-home learning schedule to talking through frustrations or stressors that are going on right now. You can reach me at this phone number. It's 312-869-4060, and leave a message for me if I don't answer, or acummins@bsd100.org. The state also has a resource called Call for Calm text line. If parents are wanting more assistance on an anonymous basis, you would text TALK or hablar to 552020.